Hey guys, Logan here, and today I'm going to show you everything you need to do to check over your bike and make sure that it's completely safe for you and the racetrack. And the first thing we're going to be checking is the lock wire. So your front caliper needs to be lock wired, your oil filter needs to be lock wired, your drain bung and your filler bung. And the lock wire needs to be done in a fashion that is pulling the bolt clockwise, is pulling it tighter. If it's pulling it undone, then it's completely pointless. And the next thing we're going to check is what I call critical fasteners. So that is essentially any bolt on your bike that if it comes loose, you're going to get seriously hurt. So that's the ones on all your brake parts, the ones on your wheels, the ones on your suspension, and even your master cylinder. Make sure that's got a lock nut on it. Trust me, I would know. Your rear sets, make sure those bolts are tight. Your subframe, all the bits and bobs on your bike, even the ones that aren't super critical, it pays to go over them every now and then and make sure nothing has come loose. Now we're going to go to the chain, and that means make sure your chain is adjusted correctly, nothing is worn out. Also make sure it has some good lubricant on it. And your joining link, make sure if it is not a riveted one that the clip is on the correct way around. And also make sure it has some silicone RTV on it to help that clip stay in position, because you wouldn't believe how many times in scrutineering either that clip is broken or is missing. The next thing we're going to check is the steering operation. So your bike should be able to go from left to right lock, and none of your bars or your levers or anything should hit the bodywork with your hands in position. Also, all your cables and stuff should be free and not catching on anything that's going to cause an issue when you're cornering. If your bars are interfering with the bodywork, an easy fix is making your steering stops adjustable. And the next thing we're going to check is that you've got your catch can / breather bottle installed and correctly fitted, and yeah, so that's going to keep oil off the track when you're eating dirt. The next thing, which can easily be overlooked, is sharp edges. So for example, your bodywork and your screen need to have a nice rounded radius on it that you're not going to cut your neck open on if you crashed, and that includes most of your bodywork. And even that, you make sure you've got your shark fin and it's got a nice rounded edge. Nice rounded edge on it as well. And that is designed so that if someone's fingers do go in there, that they're going to hit this and be pushed out the bottom instead of getting chopped up by your chain and sprocket. And on to the next thing, which is your rear set area. So your foot pegs should be tight. We shouldn't be able to move them or jiggle them anywhere. All your linkages, brake and shifter should be nice and tight with not too much play. So now we're going to check over the brakes, and I'll show you all the things to check on the front. So make sure your lever has the correct amount of travel and is not going to crush your fingers. Make sure your brake fluid is good, that your pads have nice amount of meat left on them, that your disc is not warped and it spins nice and freely and locks up as it should, and check the same on the rear. And when you've got your bike jacked up like this, make sure that your wheel bearings are good front and rear. So you should be able to spin them nice and freely, and you shouldn't be able to feel any excess vibrations, and they should not have any play in them. Next thing we're going to do is check if there's any play in the steering head. So you have your hand over the gap where the bearing is, and then put your front brake on and jiggle the bike forward and back. And you should be able to feel if there's any play in here, and if there isn't, then that's good and nothing's come loose. Next thing we're going to check is your swing arm bearings. So easy way to do that is you grab your wheel or your swing arm, give it a good jiggle back and forth, and if you have play in your swing arm bearings, you'll either be able to hear, see or feel the swing arm moving in the frame mount. Next one's pretty self-explanatory, and most people sort of focus on it heavily at the track. Make sure your tyres are in good condition, they're pumped up and they're not 30 years old. Next we're going to check your throttle. So your throttle should have a nice snappy return and smooth operation. Next, make sure your muffler is nice and tight, it's not going to fall off. And the next thing, which a lot of people take for granted, is actually cleaning your bike. You'll be surprised if you just clean it with a rag by hand, the small details and the amount of things that you may actually find is loose or missing or wrong with your bike. Now the next one is relating to cleaning as well, so that is oil. We're going to make sure we don't have a bunch of oil leaks, make sure it's nice and clean, because if you do have stuff dripping off, you could be in for a bad time. Next thing we're going to check is your bar ends, make sure they're in there nice and tight, your levers are nice and rounded, your foot pegs have them as well, because if they don't, they could end up a human hole punch. And on to checking your forks. So the main thing is your fork seals. Make sure that it is nice and clean. A little bit of residue is normal, but if you're actually getting it to the point where it's starting to drip down the fork towards your brakes, then that is definitely unsafe and you're going to need to fix that. Now, depending on your type of wheel, you may have spokes, and so another thing to check, go around them all, make sure they're all tight and you haven't got any broken spokes, because a broken spoke could give you a flatty and ruin your day. Another thing to check, especially if you've just done your tyre pressures, that you have a valve cap on there and it is nice and tight. Second last thing on the list is make sure you have a rain light mounted to your bike. And the last thing on the list is that your numbers are nice and clear and readable so that the marshals and officials can see them from their post. And that pretty much sums up this video. If you did all these checks on your bike and actually found something and you're super happy you found it, I'd be keen to hear about that. And otherwise, this has been Logan from the Motorcycle Forge. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time.